All right, I think we're live. Let me know in the chats what's happening, guys. Oh, you're watching at work. Hopefully you don't get caught, man. That's not good. Still pumping them guns. The gym just reopened a couple of weeks ago. I've been hitting my arms hard. So yeah, let me know if the mic's good. Then we'll do our second test. And then if that's good, we'll start reviewing your guys' beats. It's going to be a smaller stream just because we're doing this at a random time. But yeah, that means more opportunity for you guys to get your beats heard. Young Gabriel Muir is in here. Sue the Legend. You guys are all working or watching from work. Someone's going to get in trouble. Is my mic working? Just let me know if the mic's working, and we'll do the second audio test, and then we'll be off to the races. Everything's good. Does that mean everything's good with my audio? So let me quickly play some tunes, and then if it sounds good, we'll get started. So let me know if that came through well or mic sounds good. Oh, that's very nice of you. I should have 1 million subs. We're working our way up there. Don't worry, guys. We're here for my soothing voice. That's very nice. Ian McKay's in here. I used to be very self-conscious about my voice. I remember the very first YouTube video I made, I paid someone to do voiceover on top of it because I was just so just hearing my voice always annoyed me. So I was I just could not sit there, and came through. Wait, what? My music's good. Came through fine. Yeah, I just could not sit there and actually edit the whole video listening to my voice. But I got used to it, and now even I get turned on listening to my own voice, guys. Alexander Grund is in here. How's it going? All right, so let's start this off. No point in skedaddling and horsing around. Head over to the Discord. In the keywords area, I'm about to type in what the keyword is going to be. And here we go. I got a good one here that I've never asked you guys, but I'm interested to see what your answer is. So let me know what your answer is to that keyword in the Discord. Email me your beat using your answer as the subject line. The email's right over here. I hope I'm pointing the right way. My voice makes you want to watch more. Ooh. Yep, the voiceover work I did in that video a couple of weeks ago, people were hailing it as a triumph. I'm probably going to get nominated for an Oscar. How often do you review beats? Unfortunately, this is going to be one of the last ones. I've been doing it every 2 weeks, but as you can see right below me, I just launched my own course, and so we're going to be doing routine beat challenges. So right now we have a challenge up for my course members where they have to make a beat with a specific BPM with specific instruments. And I'm always going to be switching it up and everything, and then we're just going to listen to everyone's beats. And yeah, I think it's going to be cool. What's the Discord? Check the description. The link to my Discord's down there. But yeah, I'm really excited for that idea. And unfortunately, because I'm going to be doing that, my free time is going to be limited, obviously, so I'm not going to be able to do beat reviews like this that often. I'm sorry to break your heart, Lassane. You're a beautiful boy. I don't have Discord. It doesn't matter. You can just sign in and type in some random name, and you should be able to get in. So don't worry about it. Let's start it off. Here we go. Let's listen to A. Ritz's beat. His favorite instrument is a flute. So yeah, let's listen to this beat. Share your thoughts and opinions in the chat, like I always say. It really does help me out to see what you guys are saying, because sometimes I forget and I don't pick up on things. And so your guys' opinions obviously are, your insights are obviously welcomed, and they're great often. And I think that's it. Let's get into it. All right, I did not give him the smooth fade out. He gave himself the hard fade out. That was Aritz's flute beat. He's a man of flutes, and he made that beat. So Ayad says, dope, fire, fire, fire. I would love to hear it with halftime. That would be a unique idea. Arrangement, says Camlack. So my takeaway with his beat, there are some things I liked. I think really interesting, unique sound selection as a very like synthy. I can't even put my finger on like what the type of aesthetic what that would be. It felt like a very like Dreamcast video game type aesthetic. So unique sound selection, that's what I liked. I think one of the things that I would say in terms of getting this beat to be a little bit more usable is oftentimes when we all start making beats, something that I at least suffered with, and I've seen other people say that they suffered with this as well, is that we have a huge attraction to like making everything as bright as possible. So we'll go into the high end and just boost it up for all of our instruments. And then when you listen to other people's music, like actual professional music, you go on Spotify, listen to most people's music, they don't do that because it can get very tiring very quickly. And so I think that's one of the big culprits with this beat. There was just a lot going on in the high end. The hi-hats were very like in your face, very bright as well. That synth was very bright as well. So I think that's one of the things that I probably would have played with, just see how this beat would have felt if you sort of peeled back how bright it was. And I think another thing that sort of ties into it is just how maximal it was. I think Pistola in the chat mentioned that there needs to be a little bit of simplification, and I would sort of agree. It can be a really difficult thing when you first start out because you want to pack as many ideas as you can into this beat as possible. I've said this a few times on my stream where typically when you first start making beats, you're only able to use like one or two instruments, and then that's like the only way you can make actual beat. And then as you get better and better and better, you're able to introduce more and more layers into your beat, and that's sort of your compulsion. You think that's what a good beat is. Eventually you'll start to realize that what makes for a good beat is actually when you sort of minimize. So there's sort of this strange trajectory where you start off with only a few layers in your beat when you first start out, and then you sort of get the ability to add more and more and more. And then you realize you're sort of hurting your beat by adding so many different layers that are competing and not really helping the beat. And so then if you get to the next stage, you're going to start trimming things off and removing layers and like sort of minimizing and simplifying, just like Pistola mentioned. So I would, to Ritz, I would say, think about minimizing. If you had to reduce some layers, don't be afraid to do so. It might not feel like you're doing as much in the beat because you want to showcase all your talents, all your abilities, but you got to do what's best for the beat. So I would say to go out of your way to try and see if you can remove layers out of this beat, see how that sounds, and try to be as objective as possible. If it was someone else's beat, this is something that I always used to think when I was making beats. If this was someone else's beat, would I still like it? Because a lot of the times we can just fall in love with our own music, and that can be a dangerous thing because you're not actually hearing what's coming out of the speakers. So I always try to think, if this was someone else's beat, would I listen to it? And I would say do that with this beat, because I think you'll catch that there were just a lot of unnecessary layers in this beat that you could have minimized it, and it would have helped with both of those problems, with overall brightness and maybe even the repetition, because some people in the chat were saying it's repetitive. If you sort of moved layers in and out throughout the beat and played with when certain sounds are playing when others weren't, that would help with that issue as well. What do you guys say in here? Yo Fard, wait, Yofo Yard, listen to my beat. Check what it says. Beats are listened to at random. Camlex says he sold his first beat. Very nice. Is who? How's it going? Could go in the opposite direction with making too many sounds too dark. I would like for you to expand on that, Grout. What do you mean by that? All right, this is more submissions than I thought there would be, because I thought this chat would be a little bit more intimate, but I guess not. Salico says he loves the bassoon. Whoops, I promised Salico that I'd listen to his beat. So he's got this Bobby Shmurda beat, a drill beat. Let's take a listen to Salico's Bassoon Boy beat.
Salico, you're cool, you know.
right. That was Salako's beat there. Bobby Shmurda beat. Interesting reaction in the chat. So I would say there's a lot of what the chat mentioned that I would agree with. Salako is in here. He says, more of a UK drill sound than an NY drill sound. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I have just on the periphery been watching the drill scene. Can someone explain to me what the difference between NY and UK drill is? Because they sound very similar to me. So in terms of my adjustment, I would say that the kick was a bit too hot, and the 808, it's hard to say whether it was a bit low or, like Kenny Tora mentioned in the chat, whether the sample was just a wrong selection. One thing that in an upcoming video, I talk about 808s. I've seen some people ask, like, why is it that 808s come with specific keys? Like, it'd be so much more easy if every single UK drill is darker, New York drill is more ambient, UK drill has different 808s, drums, and sound selection. UK has British accents. I see what you're doing, funny boy. I feel like I have not gotten a clear answer yet. But anyways, back to my point. A lot of people say, wouldn't it be a lot easier if every 808 was tuned to C? And that way, like, it'd be just so much more easier to play them and put them into your project file. A lot of the times with 808s, they are put at that pitch because that's when they're sort of optimized with the type of distortion that's added onto them and the type of waveform that they ultimately come up with. There's a sort of narrow band of notes that work. You'll probably notice oftentimes if you grab an 808 that sounds good at a specific pitch, but then you try to change it like even like 6-7 semitones, it just starts to sound like junk. And the reason why that is because it's the very same reason that most 808s are sort of optimized to be in a very specific area. And so that might have been what happened with this 808. It sounded like it was very quiet and low, but I'm sure this producer knew what they were doing. So maybe they just grabbed an 808 that sounded good at its natural pitch. But then once they put it into their beat and changed the pitch of the 808, it might have just sounded completely off. No matter what the velocity is, it just completely lost most of its sort of gumption, most of its aesthetic quality, its textural quality. So that's one thing that you want to look out for. I think that's why having a big library of 808s can be valuable if you like to use 808s a lot, because most of the times you'll find that 808s need to be within a very specific window for them to actually sound good in the beat. Has anyone UK drill is based off two-step? Isn't that the same as New York drill? Maybe I need to listen to a New York drill beat. So moving on with the I think I did a bit too much stereo separation as well. Interesting. It was a cool sample. I like the loop. A lot of people in the chat said it did get a bit repetitive, so to me it sounds like you have a good grasp of what you're doing to build a loop. I would like to see you push yourself to be a little bit more audacious and try to actually look at your arrangements and try your best to actually start improving those, and push yourself to try different things and create variation within the arrangement, because the beat itself was pretty cool. Like the loop that you came up with, it was fine, it was cool. It was just the beat sort of fell somewhat short after listening to it for like 2.5 minutes, and it was somewhat the same thing over and over again. But in terms of your additional layers that you added onto those, on top of the sample, really good job. Those little vocal samples really fit in well with the beat. I really liked the way they sat. So it sounds like I mentioned, it sounds like you have a good idea of how to put a loop together, how to add layers on top. I would just like to see you push yourself more and try to be more audacious with your arrangements and try to create bigger, more substantial variations. I saw, Gret, you mentioned that being too dark is also something. that people do. That's actually something that I noticed when I was listening to a lot of lo-fi beats, where people just like pitched everything down and cut way too much of the high end, and there was absolutely no presence. So like everything, so like anything, some balance is required. But yeah, I absolutely know what you mean. Can you send a YouTube link? Yes, the last beat was a YouTube link, so that should be fine. Oh, SDCC is flirting with me in the chat. Thank you very much. All right, let's keep on keeping on. Let's listen to Thrill Boy's beat. Whoa, slow down. He's another flute boy, so there's a lot of flute boys in the chat. Flute boys rise up. Let's take a listen to his beat here called Prada. Let me know what you guys think of this in the chat, and let me know how your day is going. Hopefully you guys don't get fired for those guys that are at work. This is this stream is for the UK boys, for the EU people, since it's like evening over there. All right, here we go. All right, that was Thrill Boy, his fluty beat. Am I the only one getting San Andreas club dancing vibe? Isu asked what I was chuckling at. It was a very mean thing that was said in the chat, so only I shall laugh at it. So I think a lot of interesting things that were said in the chat. A lot of people felt the chord progression wasn't very harmonic. I didn't mind how sort of awkward it felt. I think that's somewhat of a style that I used to hear. Almost like I guess Pharrell and Tyler the Creator, that sort of tree branch of production. But having said that, I think a lot of why it sounded unsettling, like it didn't really feel like it sat well in the beat, had a bit to do with the mix. I think that's main stabby organ sound, that synth. It needed to be shaped a little bit better to sit in the beat and not be as in your face and prominent. So grabbing an EQ, and I'm not exactly sure which frequency space this takes up, but really controlling and minimizing how much space that synth takes up, and letting the other elements in the beat be a little bit more forward might have helped the beat, I think. One of the other things is the progression was pretty simple and the melody on top was pretty simple. So I felt like this is a pretty good and easy opportunity to push yourself and create more variation in the beat, just because there weren't too many moving parts that you had to worry about. There wasn't any like samples that you were stuck with. Everything, it sounded like you came up with yourself. But the only variation that you had in your arrangement were just like slapping different effects on top and introducing little interjections and instances with your samples, which is good, but I would say that a little bit more needs to be done if you want this to sound like a full beat. Those types of ideas are good if you want like to keep your beat interesting during the verse section. But if those are the techniques that you're using as the arrangement as a whole, I think you do need to do more in terms of getting the beat to feel a little bit more full and complete. Infection says, I think the sound selection was not that good. I think, honestly, I feel like with enough shaping and saturation, the beat probably could have sounded good. Almost like an early 2010s. I don't know if you guys are around for like listening to the Cool Kids or a lot of the stuff that was coming out of LA, just like the mixtape era. These are the types of beats I heard a lot, but having said that, the mix was just not there. I sort of see the vision of what this producer was going for ultimately. I just think the shaping of these sounds were just a little bit off. But yeah, I think there's some good ideas in here. It was just, again, it's hard to actually give advice here because I'm not sure how long the young Thrilla has been producing for. Okay, he's right there. I'm a beginner in this production. So yeah, I'm assuming you've only been doing this for like a couple months. If that's the case, if you have been doing this for like under a year, you're making beats that sounded better than I was making under a year. So it sounds like you have a good conception of how to actually get a good framework done. So I'd say I applaud you on that front. Just keep working at it because it does sound like you have some unique, interesting ideas in you. Most of the time, producers will go for like boring instruments, guitar type beats, as you guys know. I think I would at least applaud you for trying something a bit unique and new. Yes, let us do one more of these and we'll change up the keyword. I've been up since 6 in the morning, guys. I don't know why. Let's listen to this synthesizer. It's very, Jan Sierra. Looking at this picture here, Jan is a young 8-year-old boy. So let's take a listen. His email is 1999. So he's how old? 22? 21, 22? Or maybe he is an 8-year-old boy. Let's listen to his beat. All right, that was wild. Is this a Matrix type beat? Sounds like the Forza theme song. Definitely can't say it's repetitive. That is true. Really like the atmospheric element. This producer does a good job of creating soundscapes. It's great gaming music. So Jen, very very interesting beat. There were a lot of production techniques that were done in this beat that felt to me like very advanced. Um, yeah, I mean, like a lot of people are commending you on your sound selection, but I think you pushed it even further. Like these don't sound like your stock sounds that you'd find. You sort of went out of your way to push them to extreme lengths and really made them unique in your own type of sound. Like the entire aesthetic of the beat was really, really unique. Really did give me some. I can't even place what this made me feel like some sort of late '90s, like the person that said Matrix type beat. Like it had a sort of really unique feel to it in that regard. Um, Very frenetic, very kept me off kilter in a good way. There's just a lot I really liked about this beat. It sounds like you have a very unique style, and I always love to see producers put themselves out there and try to be unique and not just fit the mold of, as someone in the chat asked, why is my title, why do I hate guitar type beats? Like this is the opposite of a guitar type beat. Like this producer has balls. I can give him that for sure. I would say obviously this is hard to place into a genre and give it a critique because it is very idiosyncratic. I would say the structuring of like the drum pattern. I don't think the way you program the drum pattern fit the aesthetic that you're going for. Like it sounded like a very dark. It's even hard to say that because like this did feel somewhat up tempo with your drum pattern, which might be what you wanted. I don't know. It's just really hard to give this a fair shake because I have no idea what this producer was going for, but it was unique. Certain small sounds here and there sort of stuck out a tiny bit. More of the percussive drum sounds. Psycratics, what's up? But I think if you sort of went in with a different drum aesthetic that sort of fit your other sounds, because I'm having such a hard time critiquing this beat because it's just so left field, and so because of that, I almost feel like I don't want to criticize this producer because it still sounds like he's trying to find his way. Here's what I'll say. As an exercise, try to make something that's a little bit more straightforward. Try to make beats that sound a little bit more usual and try to understand how to do that. Because this is something that I sort of struggled with when I first started. I would make beats very similar to this, although not as good, where I really try to push the envelope and try unique out there ideas. And a lot of the times what would hurt me was when I heard the beat, I could hear what I was going for, but structurally speaking, it was never there because I never really understood drum patterns and how to create them optimally and how to really put together like a good structure for the beat. And so I've mentioned this before on the stream. This is why I went to make boom bap beats. I sort of wanted to learn the fundamentals of beat making, so that's the avenue I went down. And it really was helpful because it really helped me understand proper structure and really understand how to put together like a straightforward beat. And then I sort of took my out there crazy unique ideas and I was able to like pair those two together and really get a better balance. So with this beat, it sort of did feel like the structure was a bit wonky at times, like I didn't really know what you're going for. So that might be something that you might want to try out. Just try to do something that's a little bit more straightforward, get a feel for that, and then pair that with your really unique ideas and tastes, because it really does seem like this is very unique in a really good way. I love to see producers push the envelope and try something new and unique and original, and I feel like that's what you have here. If I had to give some advice, learn the rules so you can break them with a lot more efficiency so people can sort of understand what you're going for. Really cool job though, Jan. I'd really like to hear more of your tune skis. So we will do another keyword here. Grout's typing in here. What are you doing in there, Grout? Or do you want to give a keyword? Maybe we can do that. Here's the new keyword. You guys can send in your beats, and while you do, as you guys can see below me, my course has launched. I've had north of 100 people come in, and I'm getting a lot of positive feedback. There's some people in the chat that have already gone through a bunch of the lessons, so I really do think this is something that can really take your beat making skills to the next level. I address a lot of what producers struggle with in this course and try to get them to elevate their beat making process and understand where they go wrong a lot of the times. And like I mentioned before, this is one of the last streams I'm going to be doing because I'm going to be setting out challenges for course members only. As well, course members get free drum kit, free loops. They also get an SEO sheet for those of you that want to sell beats. I give you the top 1,000 keywords that you should be using. I basically created this using the exact same tool I used to grow my own YouTube channel, which has progressed quite well in the year and a half I've been doing this. And so if you sort of have trouble with growing your own type beat channel, I sort of lay out the system that I use to grow my channel that you can use too. So hopefully, I'm hoping that is going to give a lot of people more guidance and understanding on how they can make money with their beats. So yeah, there's just a lot in this course. You get lifetime access once you join. And so I'm going to be adding more and more content into the course. And so yeah, if you like my YouTube, this is basically my YouTube times 9,000. I'm going that high, guys. 9,000. So yeah, check it out, betterbeatmaker.com. The enrollment's only open for one more week. It's Wednesday, right? Yeah. So it's only open for one more week. And if you guys like it, if you guys are interested, check it out. Someone said their favorite instrument's 3X oscillator. I see what you're doing. All right, let's listen to this Patrick Mahomes type beat. Gabe Mir. I seen him in the chat earlier. Gabe, I want to see what you got, because you've been lurking around these chats for quite some time. Let me turn my page here. 1 second. Red Octane. Course is legit. The best I've ever tried out. Thank you very much. I'm glad it's helping a lot of people out, and yeah, I'm very proud of it. It took me a lot of months to put together. Anyways, here we go. Gabe Mir. Let's listen to his beat right here. All right, that was Gabe Mears' beat called Balance. A young fan of Patty Mahomes. Infection says the bell sound was cool. Damo Beat says it's well mixed. Drums have a good groove. Melodies are cool. Whereas Kenny Taro says the drums are a bit off, but in a good way. So my take on this beat, really, really cool concept. Really unique sound for that main loop. Sounds like you slowed the heck out of I don't know, maybe like a vocal sample, and you just play that at halftime, but then you layered some really unique samples and phrases from maybe that sample or a different one. A really cool sound selection. You didn't use like very typical sounds to put your main loop together, but that's what really made this beat shine. I really loved that idea. And your drum loop was very, like people said, has a nice sort of unquantized feel to it, and it really did work. I think you put together your drum pattern very well. One thing that I'll say, a lot of people said they liked the bell switch up. I agree. I liked the bell part, but the low end was a little bit awkward when you did the switch up. Yeah, it just sort of felt like the low end in this verse section was very, very detached from the hook section, and that at times can be fine, but I'm not quite sure it worked well here. I might have to listen back to think and sort of figure out why, but I'm not sure whether you just like removed a kick or you used an entirely different 808. If that is the case, maybe just being a little bit more in the pocket and keeping that drum similar. A lot of times when I want to make a drum switch up, or any switch up to the drums, maybe even just adding more drum sounds and making the drum pattern more complex could be an approach. Changing your drum sounds partway through the beat, if it's not during a bridge, that can sort of make the beat feel very detached, which was something that I sort of got. But nonetheless, I really loved what you did there, and the bell that you added on top was beautiful. I think one thing that I probably would, if this is my beat, the one sort of finishing touch that I might play with is that, like Oscar said in the chat, there's a lot of space in this beat, but at the same time, you don't want to just throw junk in and really clog your idea, because the idea as it is, I think, is it's perfect, the amount of stuff going on. I think the problem here is just the lack of using those instruments to take up as much space as possible. So much like I talked about in my video about getting your beats to sound full, I put that out 2 or 3 weeks ago. What I probably would have done is either bust that rim shot to a separate insert and added some reverb. So I have a video on that. I think it's called This Mistake is Ruining a Lot of Beats or something like that, where I talk about this technique that you can use. That's a great way to fill out more space in your beat using the sounds that you already have. And I think it would really fit into this sort of vibe and aesthetic you're going for here. It has a very nocturnal, very dark feel to it, and sort of adding a very reverby snare or reverby side stick or rim shot can play into that aesthetic. If you don't want to go down that route and you sort of do like that dry rim shot, it did feel like it stuck out a tiny bit too much. And I think part of the reason why is because there was really nothing else in that space, and there's a lot missing in the high end. And so I think maybe another idea you could do is just throw in some static noise or vinyl noise or something. You'd be surprised at how much that can really tie a beat together and make it feel a lot more whole. This is something that I sort of realized like years into beat production when I'd listen to other people's beats or listen to like actual professional music production. I would start to notice that like the parts during the beat where there wasn't much going on, so much of the time just random like white noise or static or tape noise. These are just used so often in a lot of production because they're just such a great way to fill out space and make the beat feel a lot more warm, at the same time a lot more full, because you're doing a good job of making the high end a lot more present. So that might be a technique that you might want to try, but nonetheless, really, really cool idea here. I really love the aesthetic of what you're going for. Really advanced ideas with how you put together that loop. So Gabe Amir, pat yourself on the back. Patrick Mahomes would be proud of you right now. Now I need to drink some water. Tommy says, does anyone have tips for a producer name? Help him out, guys. Let's see here. Adam Sandler. He's not an athlete. There's a lot of Usain Bolters. Let's see here. How about this fella? Odson Edward says, produced by LB says Odson Edward. I'm not sure who Odson Edward is. Let's see. A soccer fella, or a footballer, as you UK people say. Let's listen to this beat 5005. Here we go. Here we go. All right, that was a random ending there. Readjusting drums would have sounded killer. Tommy on its own isn't a very unique idea for a brand. That's true. Different, but in a good way. I like the percussion. So I think one of the things that I'll agree with in the chat is that the snare was a little bit weak. It wasn't very loud, but that's a very simple fix, just to turn that up. I like that switch up near the end of the beat, but I think what I'll say is that I think you could have been a little bit more audacious with what you did with this beat. The sample was just a straightforward 2-note progression, which is fine, but the 808 was the exact same thing, and I sort of feel like you left a lot on the table in terms of introducing more melodic variation into this beat. You could have had the 808 be a little bit more melodic, do a little bit more, just because the sample was just like very straightforward. It only had one shift within that. I think it was like a 4-bar loop or 2-bar loop, or adding another instrument in and playing around with a little bit more of a melodic idea with that. You just left a lot on the table in terms of ideas that you could have introduced, and I sort of felt like the beat felt a bit too straightforward. I knew exactly what was going to happen. You did have those 808 or sort of fills and rolls, which were nice, but yeah, just because your instruments doing one thing doesn't mean your 808 has to do the exact same thing. If your main loop or your main sample is very straightforward and not very complex, that gives you the opportunity to be complex elsewhere. And I think this beat could have been a little bit better if you did that. So that is my take on this beat. Adam Sandler is featured on SportsCenter. Huh? I don't know what's going on with my chat right now. Let's see here. Let's take a listen to Marvin Jaretsky. Marvin, you nut. You forgot to include the link to your beat. So if you send another one through, I promise I'll listen. Lou Reed. I saw him hee-hawing in the chat. He said he was going to cry in the shower if I didn't listen to his beat, as much as I would like that to happen. Let's take a listen to Cobra 4. Who's Andrea Pirlo? Another footballer? Yep. Oh, this guy's old. You're into the older gentleman, I see. All right, Lou Reed's beat, Cobra. Let's take a listen. right, that was Lou Reed's beat there. A lot of people are having issues with your 808. It's off key. That is one of the issues, I would say. Not every 808 is off though, as Danger Beat says, but here's the issue. This beat's almost like the exact opposite of the last beat, where he had something a little bit more melodic with that main piano loop, and it's a little bit more movement with that sample. And instead of being a little bit more simple with the 808 pattern to create that balance, this Lou Reed went all over the place with his 808. And I think ultimately that was his downfall here, because, I mean, all it takes is like one 808 to play the wrong note and the entire pattern's borked. And so I think if I had to fix this beat, I probably would have just been a lot more minimal, a lot more straightforward with the 808 pattern, just because the main loop is carrying the load in terms of providing a sort of melodic feel into the beat. And so not every single instrument needs to be super melodic. This is something that, as those in my course have heard me say, complexity just for the sake of it is you making yourself feel better, not making the beat sound good. And so I think that's what's happening here. Young Lu, I think you're just going completely overboard with not only the 808 pattern, but also the arrangement as a whole. It was very frenetic. It was very like ADD. You sort of didn't keep one idea. It was just like, here's a 4-bar area, and then do a switch up, and here's another 4-bar area, and do another switch up, and then here's another 4-bar idea. I don't think that is what's going to be best if you're trying to work with artists. If this is a flex type beat, that's an entirely different conversation. Having said that, Young Lu, hopefully you're not crying in the shower already and you haven't run off. I did like your unique sounds that you used for percussion. That was really cool. You didn't go with the typical rim shots and stuff. You had these strange little percussive noises all over the place, which I'll applaud you for, as well as the additional layers that you added into the beat, like the pad and like the sort of ethereal types of sounds. I think you did a good job of filling up the space in that regard. If you remember what I said to that producer a little while back about the trajectory of a producer, it sounds like you know how to add layers into your beat. Be minimal. I think it'll take you a lot further, and try to reduce the amount of stuff going on in your beats. That's you clicked on mine earlier. I do remember Young Doge, because I do remember the Doge, so I will listen to the Young Doge's beat. He's got this little beat here, a Doge type beat. He's very sad. This is the last time I give into your guys's guilt trips in the chat. A lot of people say, "Oh, he didn't listen to my beat. I'm so sad." And then there's other people that are like, "My beat's so fire, you need to listen to it right now. Otherwise, you're missing out on life. You're an idiot." Most of the time, I just ignore these people. But you know what? I'm feeling very generous. So let's listen to Doji Boy's beat here, Snow White.
And all this hocus pocus is supposed to be scientific.
All right, that was Doge Boy's beat. Maybe a bit too much wobble on the piano. Too much warp, says Grout. The flutter is horsing up the beat, perhaps. The low end presence is missing a lot. A lot of people like the beat, though. I'll say I don't really have much to say about this beat. The bass line was not working, in my opinion. It sounded like a sampled bass line. I don't think you came up with it yourself. I'm not sure. But it didn't really work with what was happening with the sample. I'm not sure whether that was due to the excessive wobbling and it just sort of going in and out of pitch with what was happening in the low end, and that's why it felt a little bit strange and off. Yeah, it's hard to give feedback on this beat because I sort of need to see how it was built. Nonetheless, the bass line, I think maybe trying to be a little bit less complex with it because it sounded like some of the notes were not fitting, so maybe trying to be a little bit more straightforward to see where you pickled your beat up. That might be an idea. The rest of the beat was fine. I mean, feels like a very sort of typical lo-fi beat. Nothing really stood out to me in that regard. Yeah, I just feel like the low end kind of pickled the beat up a bit. And outside of that, this was somewhat of a typical beat. So I'm not sure how long you've been making beats, but yeah, is he in the chat? Where is the young Doge boy? Let me know how long you were making beats for. The drums are a bit repetitive. That's the hard part about using a drum break. You sort of corner yourself in that if you try to chop it up, it can quickly become very Frankenstein-y and detached. Did I talk about that in one of my videos? I think I did. Yeah, I sort of have run out of things to say with this beat. Oh, I look extra vascular today. Woohoo! I always read the people who flirt with me in the chat. I should stop doing that. All right, we got a young Wayne Gretzky fan here. Fellow Canadian boy, perhaps. I'm from Canada. The old Gretzky here, he's a national icon. So let's take a listen to Superhero Theme by Socioflu Corporation. A Wayne Gretzky type beat. Let's go. All right. Riverdance music. Apparently that was a Bollywood sample. This type of sampling, I would like to see people push themselves a bit more. It just sounded like you found like 6 chops and then you had a drum loop play and then you hit one chop, waited a few seconds, hit the same chop, hit the same chop, hit the same chop, then after 4 bars, let's hit another chop, same chop, same chop, same chop. It got very uninteresting, even though you did constantly switch the sample up. It didn't really feel musical. It didn't really feel like a novel experience. It was the exact same thing over and over again. It was just different chops laid underneath. Yeah, I sort of think that this is the type of sampling that a lot of people start off with when they first try to sample. And granted, I think you did a good job of tying all the different elements together. I just sort of think that here's one thing that I learned a long time ago. Just because you can sample something doesn't mean you should. Try to figure out what constitutes for a good sample. Try to figure out what's going to lead you to make an actual fully fleshed idea, so you're not stuck with just this type of sampling where you're just hitting the same button over and over again. You're really stuck with that and you can't really do anything else. Yeah, that's sort of what I'll say to push you to try to be a little bit more advanced. I have a few videos on my channel with regards to sampling. I think my favorite one in terms of opening up maybe a different idea of how you can go about advancing your sampling skills. There's one video called 3 tips for sampling better or something like that. Take a look at that video, see what I mean in terms of like a different approach to sampling that's a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more, it can basically help you take your beat and be a lot more flexible and do what you want with it. Because here it felt like you found a sample that you like the sound of it, but you're just sort of stuck with it. And so you just had these huge chops and you couldn't really do anything outside of it, unfortunately. Sounds a bit mean. Revilo the Turtle says no mercy. I know I can be a jerk at sometimes, but yeah, I think that's just my takeaway. Enter the 36th Indian Chamber. But like, I think it was Liam that said it in the chat. Where is it? Yeah, it was Liam McConnell. I'll say right off the bat, even though I did grill you a little bit hard there, who's it, Socioflow Corporation. Respect to all of you guys for actually submitting, though. This is very difficult, very scary. Obviously, all you guys submit your beats and you'd like me to say, my God, you're the next legend coming up. You're amazing. But obviously, this review probably went the opposite way of what you're hoping. Nonetheless, not the end of the world. Obviously, you're where you are right now, but that doesn't mean this is where you have to be forever. And I'm sure you probably have beats that you would say are better than this one in your library. Nonetheless, the respect to you and respect to all you guys for actually submitting your beats, because it takes balls to actually put your stuff out there and ask someone, what do you think of this? Because me and the Discord were having a chat earlier this morning about how some people will just sort of stay in this little fantasy world and believe that their beats are great without actually going out there and putting their stuff into the world, because that's the scary and hard thing to do. So respect to all you guys for actually taking that step and doing it, even if it hurts sometimes, because that's necessary. You've got to sort of be all right with someone saying, this wasn't for me, I didn't like this. But the journey is all about finding people who do like what you do and improving all the meanwhile. All right. Here we go. Who else wants their beat reviewed? Could we say, actually, let's do another keyword while I listen to this one. Here we go. Here's an interesting one. New keyword in. I'm gonna listen to one of these beats. In the meanwhile, let's listen to Tornique's beat. I hope I pronounced that right. Yegor Marklov's favorite athlete. Another soccer guy. A gamer. I'm about to throw this beat out. Are gamers athletes? I don't know. I guess for me, I'm a little bit old-fashioned in that I think physical activity is what constitutes athleticism. Obviously, the fast twitch muscles of gaming are necessary, but I don't want to start a war in this chat. Let's take a listen to this beat, Skittish. Here we go. something else going to play? I say we sit here for the remaining 40 seconds and wait for something else to play. Guys, something's coming, I'm pretty sure. Here it comes. No. All right, so it sounds like this producer maybe just started making beats recently. I would say that musically speaking, this is pretty... I'm going to go under the assumption that this producer is a little bit new. I would say that musically speaking, everything's put together very well. There wasn't anything that like sort of stuck out as off tune to any degree or like horribly misplaced. I think what I would say is that just like Internet Face just said in the chat, stock sounds, no matter what you do in terms of how musical and beautiful you make your beat, it's never going to sound as good as like what you love to listen to. So I would say to this producer, I would recommend they take a step and try to introduce more unique textures, more unique sounds. And that doesn't necessarily mean go out and buy the most expensive plugin. Like I mentioned, you can go online and buy Expand for like $10-15. And I honestly think that's probably the best thing a newer producer can buy. You need very little beyond that in terms of synths and whatnot. Obviously, other synths can help you out in different ways, but I feel like to get started, that gives you all that you need in terms of getting out of this pickle of being stuck with stock sounds. So yeah, that's what the advice I'll give to this young buck. The sounds feel very basic. Yeah, it's one of the problems. Like you're gonna have a very hard time creating something that sounds good and unique if all you use is stock sounds. Some stock sounds are fire, sure, but if the entire beat's using stock sounds, it's just gonna be very hard to differentiate your beat from what every other single producer does when they first download a program and try to make beats, because everyone uses stock sounds, and there's a reason why everyone in the chat was able to identify that these are very stock sounds. Winton says, I still use Expand. So do I. Even though I have Omnisphere on my computer and a whole bunch of other plugins, I find myself reaching for Expand pretty often. So, yeah. Let's see what animal you guys like. I'm a Jaguar man myself. Cheetar? Oh, Malamu David. He's another Jaguar fella, so I had to listen to this beat. Thrones 4-2. Guys, it's 3:16 here right now. Let's crack a beer. Let me know how you guys are doing in the chat. Hopefully you guys are feeling good. Exogenist says, been making beats for a month and a half and trying to become more melodic and use chords and stuff. Don't know music theory though. I've been making beats for more than 10 years and I don't even know music theory. So don't feel like the pathway to making better beats and the only way to get there is exclusively through music theory. I know a lot of people say that. Music theory does help you with executing certain ideas. As I've sort of understood a little bit more and more, I'll definitely say it does help me. Nonetheless, I was getting placements and getting music on video games, working with artists with absolutely no idea about anything regarding music theory. These are two completely different skill sets, in my opinion. So, yeah. SB Kai's doing good. I'm feeling good, too. Corlino says he's stressed and depressed. I'm sorry to hear that, my love. Big kisses to you. It's the beginning of spring. Beautiful weather in Toronto. I'm planning on visiting Toronto at the end of June. Hopefully you wackos can get your COVID numbers down, because I don't want to die just to go to a cabin in Toronto. Hans Zimmer said he's creative because he doesn't know much music theory and has to experiment. This is actually something that I somewhat believe as well. There have been a lot of producers who I'll listen to. I'm sure Malamu David's very annoyed that I'm just sitting here and not listening to his beat yet. But I'm going to rant. There have been a few producers that I listened to where I really loved their style, but then they started to get a little bit more interested in coming up with musical, or I guess music theory, making sure everything falls in line with music theory, wanting to get sort of live feel to their beats, and they want to play everything themselves. And yeah, sometimes that just makes the producer lose their edge. I sort of feel like, even for me, when I listen to some of my older beats, I'll be like, well, that's a pretty unique idea because in my head, I wanted to execute this one thing. And I feel like with music theory, it gives you a somewhat finite way of problem solving. And without music theory, you sort of have to figure out how you're going to solve that problem in your own unique way. I don't know whether that makes sense or not, or whether I'm just being a dum-dum. That's just my thoughts and opinions. Malamu David, I'm sorry for ranting. Here we go. Okay, Malamu David. Let's let him do his little fade out here. Cool. So that was Malamu's beat there. Big hit in the chats. People liked it. Give me money Mitch vibes. I don't know what that is. Just crank that snare up a bit, says Internet Face. So my takeaway with this beat is that you did a really good job of keeping it together. I think like we've seen with some of the other beats in this stream, at times obviously some guys can get out of control and just try to make their beat as big as possible. You did a good job of structuring your beat and keeping it interesting with a small little switch ups here and there throughout the verse section. You had a very well defined verse, very well defined hook, and I think you had an appropriate amount of layers within the beat at each section. The beat always felt like it's a very rappable beat. That's exactly what you want. I hope that's what you're going for, because it really did work in that regard. Good job of all those small little sounds as well, those sort of ambient sounds in the background, like we heard at the very outro there, the sort of strings and like the pads way in the back. I think you did a good job of adding those in. Those small little details can go a long way in making your beat sound full. One thing I would say is that synth that you had in the hook, maybe control it a tiny bit in regards to how much space it fills up. It was very in my face and very pronounced in the beat. I might have, if this was my beat, probably grabbed an EQ and really reduced the amount of space that takes up on both ends. It feels like overall the core of the sound fits in the right pocket, but the sort of edges, it takes up a little bit too much on both sides in the low end and the high end. So I think if you just reduced the amount of space that it took up and just make the frequency space a little bit more well defined, that might have made the synth feel a little bit less intrusive, but still have the beat sound full, because it's still taking up a good amount of space in the beat. So very good job. What are my thoughts on claps and snares? I like snares, but the high end can sometimes be a bit much. I'll use either one. Sometimes if I want something a little bit more subdued and a little bit, I don't want to put the emphasis elsewhere, I'll go for a clap. If I want there to be a nice smack in the face, I'll go with a snare. You know, it's whatever I feel like it. Sometimes I make the wrong choice, but it's part of the game. Part of the game. Good Pitziaz background pluck, interesting panning, but poor structure and rhythm. I'm not sure whether I agree with you, PK. I think the structure was very good in terms of getting a rapper to be interested in actually getting use out of it, which is ultimately what my channel sort of geared towards. Dennis says, I enjoy watching videos. Thank you very much. I think I saw MLG in the chat say not to listen to his beat. So I was actually about to, but you know what, MLG, I'll abide by what your wish is. And I won't listen to your beat. Some people like snakes. That's dangerous. Goats. I want to hear a goat type beat. All right, Morphine's beat here. A big goat lover. I'm not sure what that says about him. Hopefully he doesn't live on a farm and get lonely, because that goat's about to... you know what? Let's not even go there. Free for Profit, Ethereal, Juice World, Lil Peep, Star Shopping. Let me know what you guys think of this beat. All right, that was Morphine's beat there. He said he's literally in tears right now because you guys are being very nice to him. So I like that. Nipple drums. What is that? I don't know what's happening in my chat. So it's one thing I'll say is that some of you guys complained about clipping happening. I think that's on my end. I don't think that's the producer's issue there. When your girl gets stolen by the school bully type beat. Yeah, I'm not sure what the hell that is, but I'm pretty sure it's on my end. I see people complaining about that from time to time. That's my fault. I don't know what the hell's going on there. Anywho, I think with the beat, I really enjoyed the vibe of it. I enjoyed the aesthetic and all the sounds that were used. A very chill, very sad boy beat. I really got that feeling. Made me want to eat on some ice cream underneath my bed covers and perhaps even shirtless while I do so. So I think that's the exact aesthetic and intention you were going for, and you succeeded there. I think it's interesting that Groutmeister, you mentioned earlier that the issue with the high end is another thing where there's like a lack of high end, when I said a lot of new producers go a little bit too extreme on that end. And then partway through the beat, I saw you mention that exact point. That's exactly what I had written down, which is I think there was a tiny bit missing in the high end. You had your hi-hats and your, I think it was like a tambourine in the beat, but they were very low, and I sort of feel like there was a bit lacking in the high end. So whether you try to just like turn those sounds up, or maybe add a little bit of static or white noise, or you try to maybe introduce another layer, but nonetheless, whichever means you take, I think that might help the beat out a tiny bit. The vocal sample that you had in the beat was really awesome. I love that. Very cool. It fit perfectly with the beat. And Arian says I've been hinting at being shirtless for too long. I do mention being shirtless like at least once a stream. I think I have some sort of... This is my subconscious telling me I should start an OnlyFans. I think that's what's going on here. That's what Freud would say. But yeah, overall smooth idea. I would say that that part in the beat where there was like a 4 on the floor with the kicks, I wasn't really too much into that part. Nonetheless, cool idea. Small little things here and there I might have changed, but nonetheless, you've got a nice cool sound here. You went for that aesthetic to be a sad boy, an ethereal sad boy, and I think you succeeded. So well done to young Morphine. Big kisses to him. All right, so it's 3:30. Let's go for another perhaps 45 minutes. We'll do another keyword. Oh, Grout, while you mention that, let me quickly new keyword is up while you guys send it in. Let me show you something right here, right now. Whoops. So let me flog my course for a second. I'll quickly show you guys the curriculum while we all wait, because yeah, if you guys are interested in joining my course, this just launched on Tuesday. I basically take the entire beat making process and help you with the issues that most producers have when they just started making beats, or they've been making beats for a couple of years. A lot of the things that a lot of producers go wrong. So as well, you get a bunch of free loops, drum kits, and a few other goodies like an SEO sheet if you want to sell beats. I give you the top 1,000 keywords that you should be using if you started your channel. A lot of the times people try to make beats and say, this is a J. Cole type beat, this is a Drake type beat. You're never going to get traffic if you go for such huge names, because those are highly competitive. That's just not the way SEO works. So I show you my exact strategy that I used when I first started my channel, and I grew it to where it is now. I'll give you the exact blueprint of what I did. But nonetheless, on the beat making side of things, to actually help you guys make better beats. We have many different sections in this curriculum. Starting a beat, so what you should know if you want to use loops. The ultimate sampling guide, I sort of give you a breakdown of how most people mess up, bork up when it comes to sampling. I show you the things that you need to know to make your own loops and samples. Choosing the right drums, that's something a lot of people struggle with. Drum pattern creation, bass lines, bass patterns. Something that someone mentioned in the chat was like everyone uses 808s, that 808s are like the key here. I really do want to emphasize how important it is to use other sounds and the use and when you should try to use different types of basses, and I go over that in this course. Adding in sounds into your beat that work, this is a big one. A lot of you guys will shove in sounds into your beat that sort of stick out and don't necessarily work and you don't know why. And I go through a lot of the big things that producers mess up with. And there's a free little preview here. Can I copy this link? So if you guys want to watch a free lecture from this course, hit that up. And then we have arranging your beats, the sort of techniques that you can use to basically take any beat, any loop that you have, and figure out how to make an entire full beat out of it using the system. Finishing a beat, the 7 things that I see most people get wrong, including myself. Mixing a beat, marketing a beat, just like I mentioned. So yeah, this is basically my entire 10 plus years of experience all put into one course for you guys. If you feel like you want to expedite your growth, if you want to jump up and leap forward in your beat making, avoid making all those mistakes that I had to learn through for the last 10 years and just basically skip all that, hopefully, and advance your beat making skills in a more productive, efficient way, check this course out, betterbeatmaker.com. And if enough people join, I'll take my shirt off. And I should mention, by the way, this is one of the last streams that I will be doing. I used to do them every 2 weeks. I'm going to be reducing that greatly because live streams are going to be for course members, because we're going to be doing beat challenges. In order to really help you guys improve, I want to force you guys to get out of your comfort zones. If you make the exact same type of beat over and over again, if you're making a trap beat over and over and over and over, you're not really growing. You're just doing the exact same thing, and you're not really exploring what you don't know and trying to understand new concepts. So this is a sort of idea that I have where every 2 weeks I'm going to challenge you guys, or maybe even 1 week, I'm not sure how often I'll do it. I'll challenge you guys to do a specific type of beat with specific parameters, and that's going to be starting soon. I'm going to be doing live streams for this week up until next Wednesday, and once the course closes, I'm going to be moving over to doing those beat challenges. So yes, my lovelies, that's the spiel. Thank you for sitting there and listening to it. Let's listen to these beats right now. Let's see if anyone agrees. Oh, prod by JD. Purple boys. That's me. I'm a purple boy. Simple beat, he says, but nothing crazy. Let's take a listen. Thank you guys again for showing up. We're still going to go for another half an hour, 45 minutes. Your support means a lot. It's been taking a while to get to this point of growth, but I'm looking forward to what else we can do with this YouTubery, because you guys are cutie boys, and I love you. Here we go. All right, that was JD's beat. Interesting. Cool, but pretty repetitive. Says S4D. Mighty Joe says the beat is lifeless. That's interesting. Jealousy in the chat accuses Groove Bruh. Moonwalk type beat. I think I saw Sasha in the chat asked me how long did it take to grow. That's disgusting that you would ask me that. What's the keyword? I'm just playing, Sasha. My channel's been up for a year and a half. I started it in September of 2019. Anywho, with this beat, what I would say is that something that Tumacology, I think the name was. I'm sorry if I forgot the name. What I would say is that the reverses in this beat were a bit sharp, like he said. I think overall this beat could have been helped with taking the layers and sort of pushing them back and forth in terms of the different grounds. In a video I put out a little while back in January about the 5 red flags that most beat makers make, I think this one's guilty of that one where everything was very in my face. I think a very quick and great way for this beat to feel a lot more full and not as lifeless as someone in the chat said is if you just took those reverses and like made them very ethereal sounding and have them be in the background and have them be a lot more reverby. I think that would have made the beat feel a lot more multi-dimensional. I think that's what the chat was referring to when they said it's lifeless. If your beats all sit like right in the front, all in one plane, right in the foreground, it can be very easy for your beat to sound very sort of amateurish. I don't know if that's the right word, but nonetheless, I think this beat could have been helped by adding a little bit more sort of dimensionality and playing around with space a little bit more. And yeah, beyond that, the beat did get a little bit repetitive, but if this producer has only been producing for a little bit, I think focusing on making a good loop is priority number one, so I won't try to get on people's cases if they just start making beats and their arrangement isn't all that great. So yeah, it felt dry, as Infection said. Great way of putting it. Okay. Let's listen to Eduardo Meso's beat. He's been producing for a few years, and he needs a review to step his game up. But he's a Goldie boy. Rampage 2 is his beat's name. Let's take a little listen. Here we go. By the way, Sasha, I was just horsing around. I'm not actually messing. I'm not actually angry. I was just playing around. Anyways. That was Eduardo's beat there. Infection says the bells are a bit too repetitive. Grout says cut the 808 and cut the low end of your melodies that you don't need. Try adding sound effects. So, I think with this beat, like it took until 1 minute and 45 until I felt like the beat had a bit of a better balance. This producer layered multiple sounds on top of each other, but they just sat in the exact same space for the most part. They didn't do anything different from one another. And like once you got to 1:45 and one of the layers got removed, that's when it started to feel like an actual verse section. But then that was quickly done with because the second sound that was doing the exact same thing came back in. The low end had a lack of definition, but in terms of how to fix this beat, like the main loop's very repetitive and it's an arpeggiating melody. I think where the sound sat wasn't all that great, like Grout said. Getting rid of a lot of the frequencies that you don't need is going to help the sound sit a lot better, and maybe even adding some reverb just because, again, a lot felt very in my face. But having said that, I think musically speaking, when you have an arpeggiating synth like this, it gives you a lot of room to be expressive with your other elements, even though it does sound like there's a lot going on, because it's the repetitive pattern over and over again. It sort of equals out to just being one note, and so you can get away with being a little bit more melodic elsewhere, but you sort of didn't with your 808. It was very straightforward. Yeah, I think those are the dimensions in which I would try to address this beat. Yeah, like Tumacology said, still waiting for the verse part. There's only that one section in the beat where it started to feel like that. But yeah, it's just hard to sort of give an opinion on where to start with how to fix this beat. Like, what's the biggest issue that I would say? I would say, like Grout mentioned, playing around with the amount of layers that are in this beat and the spaces that they take up is probably going to be the biggest thing that you should probably address. Grab an EQ, start carving sounds out, and play with some reverb as well to play with space and see how that helps, because I have a feeling that's going to be the first initial point in starting to address the issues in this beat. Having said that, there are a few other things like the arrangement. A lot of people said this beat was repetitive. Let's just put that aside for now. I would just focus on trying to get this loop to sound good, and the first step would probably be thinking about the space in which everything sits and what's actually adding into the beat and what's just a layer that you threw in there because you just felt like adding more is necessary. So yeah, it's hard to critique this beat and give actual advice on where I would start. Whoa, Microsoft account needs to be fixed. I've been hacked. Oh well. Bushi Beats, he's got this indigo beat. I don't know what indigo even is. Is that another type of purple? Perhaps. Let's listen to this beat. 120 BPMs, G minor. So this should be a spicy beat. Okay, that was Bushy Beats' beat there. You know how it grooves, says Mahiv. Not sure what was his idea. That's interesting. The brass sounded like it was depressed. That's funny. So I would say that I would agree with what Garrett and Grout said. For one, the sound selection was a bit lacking. Just like the beat that I mentioned a couple beats ago, stock sounds can be a very easy way for your beat to just sound very, I don't know if cheap's the right word, but just more amateur than maybe your skill set reflects. So what I would say is steer away from stock sounds and very dry sounds as well, because Trill Hitta and I can't remember who else said the beat sounded somewhat empty and somewhat lifeless. Again, just playing around with the space. There were some ideas in here where I thought this would actually sound half decent if there was some reverb or some saturation put on it, and this beat just filled out a lot more spaces. But here, this beat just felt a little bit limp, for lack of a better term, just because you didn't take advantage of spaces overall. Having said that, I think the biggest culprit in this beat was that the instruments all felt like they were just doing whatever they wanted, musically speaking. I would just try to be a little bit more basic with your loop and like what the different instruments are doing. You had the sort of brass sound going all over the place, sliding all over the place. You had your main organ also very melodic. Again, just like I mentioned, not having every single element in your beat be melodically complex just for the sake of it's a good idea. You should, if you're going to have something be complex, another thing probably should be basic to sort of create some balance. Here we just had so many different instruments doing so much melodically, going in different directions all the time. It just never felt like things came together and the instruments were actually working with one another. It just felt like a sort of frenetic combination of ideas and like put together, where like these three ideas could be separate beats on their own, like a main melody, but you just put them all together into one. So yeah, if you're gonna go down the route of making like the organ, for example, a little bit more complex, taking your brass and being a little bit more simple and not being as melodic, that type of thing is what I'm referring to here. Yep, lacking reverb. It just doesn't play with the room sound, says R. Yeah, exactly. Stock sounds make my beats sound inexpensive. My main goal this year is to invest in more sounds. Winton, I would just say honestly, don't get caught up in that race of buying more plugins, buying more effects. Buy Expand for like $10-15. That's probably the best investment on that front. For me, I use a lot of Decapitator, but it is a bit on the more expensive side. That's mainly just for low end. I feel like FabFilter Saturn is probably another plugin. If I had to recommend two plugins for a producer to go out and buy if they have nothing and they've been making beats for a little bit, I don't want to get people in that feeling of I don't like the way my beats sound, so I'm going to try to buy my way out of it, like the video that I mentioned, or the video that I made about like the 3 myths that new producers believe. Once you do get to that point where you're like, hey, I sort of feel limited by my sound set here, and I sort of do want to create a little bit more complexity in my beats, but I sort of feel limited, I would say Expand. FabFilter Saturn's a little bit expensive, but I like it. And Valhalla, their plugins are free or like $10. They're pretty inexpensive. So those would probably be my 3 things that I would say to give her. Quick question, do you review other genres like Afrobeats, EDM? I'll listen to anything. I love music in general, although I do have a particular taste, obviously. You know what I've been listening to recently? Should I just put on a random song that has nothing to do with hip-hop? I'll probably get demonetized, but this video is not monetized anyway, so I don't care. Let me know in the chats. You know what? I'm just gonna do it. What's the song even called? I don't even know. Hold on. Let me quickly go through my Spotify. You guys can amuse yourselves while I search, but don't amuse yourself in that way. You know what? Here's a beautiful beat that I love. Let's take a listen to this. I love this dang song. What's that thing someone said? I'm pretty sure this played while being turned away at the door at a club. That's funny. I'm gonna play one other song and then I'll get back to the reviews, I promise. I just feel like sharing some good music right now. You Take Sykes. I have taken one a year. I do mushrooms once a year for like the last 3 years now. Very positive experience. I would say to not do it when you're a young boy though. Here's another song that I'm gonna put on and then we'll get back to reviewing beats. I just have to play this because I love this song. It's a little bit poppier, but nonetheless, it's just such a great tune. Woo-hoo-hoo! That was fun. I'm surprised at how many drug boys are in my chat. That was actually just a trap, just to expose you guys. I'm actually the FBI this whole time. I'm about to come to your houses and lock you up. I'm just joking. I have done mushrooms. And once a year I find is a nice number for me so far. I've only done it like 3 times. I don't want to become a zoot head, as they say. But nonetheless, by the way, if you guys enjoy those tunes and you have comparable tastes and you have very similar songs that you know of, DM me on the Discord because I love this type of music. And yeah, hit me up with similar types of tunes because I'm always trying to find new types of music like that because it's so chill. I feel bad for the next beat I'm about to listen to because those are like 2 of my favorite songs right now by very proficient producers. So who wants to nominate themselves as the next person start DJing or on a YouTube career? Maybe I should. You know, let's see who just submitted. Marvin Jaretsky. He has gone forward and wanted to submit his beat for review. Let's take a listen. I'll probably do another 15-20 minutes since I did play some random tunes there. Here we go. I can't give the smooth fade out since it's SoundCloud, but I feel like I get the point of the beat. Many people in the chat has liked it. Nice mixing. Needs a 90s cipher on this. Disfire. So what I'll say with this beat, it's well put together. It's obviously going for a very particular aesthetic. The little noises were a nice addition, and I also picked up that you added your own layer of static or noise on top, which was very smart. You ducked it out for a second, and then the beat sounded very bare. So that sort of cued me that you added it yourself, and it did a great job when you introduced it back. You could hear such a big difference in terms of how much space it filled. What I would say is that, like Trilla said in the chat, the beat was a bit repetitive, unfortunately. I don't know if you made the sample yourself or whether you sampled it from somewhere else. Even something as small as introducing a little bit more variation with your drum pattern could be a way to introduce something to keep the beat interesting, or maybe even dropping the sample every now and again. These small techniques can go a long way in making your beat sound a lot more fleshed out, as well as just dynamic. So the small little details could have helped this beat a tiny bit more. As well, the synth on the hook, maybe adding some reverb and making it very spacey, adding some delay, that might have helped. Nonetheless, very well put together beat. It sounds like you know how to put loop together. What I would say, again, like I did before in this stream, I would push you to try and push yourself in terms of the arrangement and figure out ways to create some variation within your arrangement, which, by the way, is a full lecture in my course available now, right down there, betterbeatmaker.com. If you'd like to improve your beats and you don't know how, you don't know what you're doing wrong, betterbeatmaker.com. It's an online program designed to address every single problem that most beat makers have when making beats and how to basically solve them. So head over to betterbeatmaker.com. The full curriculum is there in case you want to see what the course has to offer. You'll get drum kits, free loops, an SEO sheet for the top keywords if you want to sell beats online, access to an exclusive Discord club, and like I mentioned before, this is one of the last streams I'll be doing for some time because I'm going to be shifting over to doing live streams exclusively for course members, because I'm going to be setting up routine challenges for course members to really push them. Like we talked about in the chat, forcing yourself to listen to different types of music can be one way of expanding your creativity in your mind. Forcing yourself to do types of beats that you're not very accustomed to doing. These are things that I think are very helpful for beat makers, so that's what I want to push course members to start doing. Anywho, let's listen to a couple more beats because my bladder's full and it's about to be 4:20. Here we go. Nico Taylor. Let's listen to your beat, young Nico. Mr. Nico, I'll give you the smooth fade out there. I think the big culprit that everyone has picked up on in the chat. There's no low end at all. So, yeah, I think a nice 808 would have been perfect for that beat. Almost very big critish for the old geezers like me. Just a sort of sped up soul sample with trap drums on top. But yeah, I think a nice 808 would have really filled the beat out there. And yeah, he did a nice job of creating variation with the sample. It's just that one part of the beat was missing. My bladder's about to explode. The last beat of the night here. Here we go. Again, I'm going to be doing another stream on Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. So look that up. And then I'm going to be doing another stream next Wednesday in the evening. So I'll see you guys hopefully on Sunday. I can listen to some more of your sexy beats. I've had a very lovely time with you guys. And again, I want to say thank you for showing up and actually submitting your beats. Even though I didn't get to listen to them, I'm sorry that I didn't get to listen to all your guys' beats. It's just the way it goes sometimes. It does take balls to submit nonetheless. And the fact that you guys do submit your beats and you're ready to face criticism, even if it's not positive all the time, it's indicative of the type of character who would succeed, the type of person who seeks out feedback and is actually looking to improve instead of just believing they're the best of all time and never showing anyone their beats. Respect to all you guys for actually being brave. Brave boys, that's us. We're all brave boys. Here we go, guys. Last beat of the night, and I'll see you guys on Sunday. We are going to listen to SB Kai's beat here, 927. Here we go, sexy boys. All right, that was SB Kai's beat. Whoops, sorry there. Seems somewhat divisive. Some people did not enjoy the piano in the beat. Nice chord progression. So the way I'm taking this beat, it feels very West Coast. It feels very reminiscent of the 90s types of West Coast beats, which is sort of why I somewhat like the piano. It sounds somewhat cheesy and somewhat stock-ish, but those old school beats sort of did have that aesthetic. So this is somewhat of nostalgia just playing on me. I didn't actually mind that piano. What I would say is that, well, so the sound selection for pretty much most of your beats, if that is your aesthetic that you're going for, was pretty spot on. I really love that bouncy synth bass and all the other elements that you added. I think the only thing this beat was missing was like a nice kick. There was no kick in the beat, just the 808. So I would have liked a little bit more rhythmic elements using a kick. I think that would have helped the beat a tiny bit more. But yeah, it was no bounce / kick, says AD Griet. The melody got resonance, no good frequencies for your spirit. And Internet Face is laughing it up. All right, guys, I'm going to go to the washroom because my bladder has ruptured. Thank you guys for showing up. Sunday, hopefully I see you guys again. We'll do this once again. Maybe I'll play some more hot tunes for you guys, do some more DJing. So, yeah, thank you guys for showing up. You're all beautiful boys. Peace out.